All right, we'll call this meeting of the Mansfield School Building Committee to order. Today's April 28. And welcome everyone. Our first item on our agenda is the approval of the April 14 minutes. We have a motion to approve from Chris McNabo. Is there a second? Kathy, are there any corrections or updates?
I have one simple one.
Yes.
It's just a spelling of clear story. C-L-E story.
Yeah.
Windows.
Yes, it's one word. It looks like Claire story.
I'm sorry, you went out, Chris. What were you saying? Clear.
There's just a spelling error on clear story. For Windows, it's C-L-E-R-E.
S-T-R-Y.
And then story, all one word, but it just has a different spelling.
Okay.
Right,
We have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor of approving the April 14 minutes, please give me a sign. Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, seeing none, thank you. That brings us then to our OPM update. Adam?
Good evening, everyone. So just to give you the highlights for this evening, I'll do the typical quick update. And then there are some updated information, namely a cover letter about the soils on site. There were some questions with regard to potential hazardous materials within the soils. So we received a letter from the consultant that Randy asked that I read into the record. So I'll do that as part of my update. And then also, I believe Alan Corson from the town is here to speak a bit about just the water testing that was done for the site. So we'll do that all as part of the OPM update. And then a little later on, the only things up for voting for this evening are an appropriation of funds for the movers, and then the typical invoice packet. So just kind of jumping right into the update. The building completion date is still scheduled for October for Newfield. Newfield is coordinating with the town about the completion of the site elements as it pertains to getting occupancy for the building. So there was some updated feedback from the Department of Transportation that suggests that roadblock, if you call it that, might be passed now. But there's still coordination that needs to be done with regard to Planning and Zoning Commission and what the site looks like when the building is able to be occupied. So stay tuned for more information on that, but Al is coordinating with the town on that front. In terms of just ongoing activities on site, still a large focus on the exterior walls. The spray applied air vapor barrier is making its way around the building. Currently focusing on area A by the main offices up front. Meanwhile, sort of chasing the air and vapor barrier is basically a nail board insulation that the metal panels will be attached to eventually. So that's the next layer on, and that's making its way along B wing. Jeff in a little bit can talk about the mock-up for the zinc panels, but those should start to be installed soon. So the final layer of the wall sandwich, if you will, should be starting to be showing up on the back side of the building on area B shortly. And then in a couple of weeks, we found out today that some of the windows should be starting to arrive on site to be installed. I think it was in a week and a half time frame, maybe 2 weeks. So those areas are progressing, as is the metal roof deck above the cafeteria has been nailed down, and roofers are scheduled to come out next week to start buttoning up the gym and cafeteria area portion of the building. On the interior, painting has started at the lower level of B. So even though we don't have roof on parts of area C, Newfield has continued to keep chomping at it on the interior. And so at that lower portion of B that's been dried in for a while, they're actually starting to put up paint finishes on the drywall in some of the classrooms and the corridors. And area A at the interior by the front office, interior walls are starting to come up now that the slab is done. They're starting to build out those portions of the building. And separately from the school site, anyone that's been to the school or driven around, the intersection work is starting to near completion. The paving's down and they have the chalk lines outlined to put up the final striping. So that's drawing to a close, which is good. And then with regard to the demolition of the building, there were some samples taken during the spring break to help facilitate and pull forward a couple days some of the make-ready work that would need to happen when the students and staff are actually out of the building and Newfield gets in there to start closing things up. There was a little bit of, like I said, initial make-ready work that they were able to squeeze into spring break to try to pull a couple days out of that process and expedite the demolition of the building once the gates are open, so to speak, for Newfield to get in there. And then just as one final update outside the building, the signage for outside on the road. We got some initial feedback from the wayfinding consultant with regard to some sample designs. I'm still waiting to hear back from them insofar as coordinating with the town and the zoning regulations. It's that front edge of the property near the road, the state road, it's got a very tight fit. So want to make sure that whatever designs they come up with will actually be able to fit within that area and meet all the zoning regulations before they go too crazy on final design. So that just came over the wire. So potentially the next meeting will be able to have maybe some images, maybe not, of what those signage options might look like. Any questions on any of that before I dive into the letter from the consultant about the soils?
Okay, don't see any.
All right, so what I'll do, we just got this today, so it is in that shared drive link, but I'll share my screen. I'll read it out loud. So what this is that there was a question from a council member with regard to the soils that are on the site and potential volatile organic chemicals and some other chemicals and materials that might be in the soils. They had expressed a concern. And so we reached out to our consultant, Langen, who did some of the follow-up soils testing. So if you recall way back when, there was some initial site assessments that were done, phase 1 and phase 2, that did some preliminary work. And so this series of tests was done subsequent to those as a sort of confirmation of the quality of the soil on the site. And they re-reviewed the results and they provided this letter, which, as I mentioned, just came in today. So that's what this letter is. It's just sort of summarizing the soils on site. So again, this is from Langen, who's our consultant. Randy, you want me to actually read it, or do you want me to just scroll?
Why don't you can cut down to the bottom paragraph and cut to the chase.
Okay. So I'll slowly scroll for the video and then I'll read at the bottom. And again, this is in your shared folders. But the critical closing argument here is, based on the results of our limited soil sampling investigation, we did not identify VOCs, which are volatile organic chemicals, pesticides, or herbicides in the shallow topsoil at subject property, so the Southeast Elementary School. And so these test results, like I said, were done in December 2020 after some of the preliminary reports. So this is the latest and greatest that was the basis for continuing on with the project. And then the last bit, the second page is just the signature page. So it's very succinct and clear insofar as, based on their test results, they did not find anything in the soils they didn't find any of these items in the soils. So that there's no action item on this necessarily. This was just a follow-up to an inquiry and provided the information for the committee's background. Any questions on that?
Kathy?
I'd like to know, did this cost us anything else? Is this something that we had to additionally pay for?
There was some additional funds left over from their, I believe it was from their soils allocation. So the drafting up of this and the re-review would we're anticipating to come out of those funds. The answer to your question is yes, this letter would cost some money.
Is this going to be our practice going forward, that everything that might be questioned is questioned and we have to pay additional funds to answer the questions? I'm just a little confused. I thought our phase 1 or phase 2, I thought we addressed these issues. I'm concerned that going forward, we're going to have to continually pay some money for things that may or may not be necessary.
I guess
That's my comment.
Yeah. Without getting
Thank you.
too in the weeds, I guess I would just say, you know, some of the questions that had been posed on this front were posed by a town official during a public meeting. And so we felt it necessary to, you know, reach out and get a more formal response that could be read into the record under those circumstances. I think we all share the hope that there won't be a need to continue to pursue this line of questioning any further.
Thank you, Ryan.
I'll do Tony and then Chris McNamara and Chris Kiefner.
I just want to add that this particular council member is going very public with his criticism of all sorts of things, and has been recruiting other members of the public to make comments on social media. So it is absolutely essential in my mind that these questions be answered. We have in the past had to spend quite a bit of money on dealing with people who raise questions like this. And it has just got to be part of what we deal with.
Okay, Chris McNamara.
When we have documents such as the one that you shared with us, Adam, that was done in December, could that not have sufficed as responding, or it had to be redrafted?
That particular study, the actual 2020 sample testing was shared. My understanding, and someone jump in if I'm mischaracterizing, my understanding is that raised more questions. It's a lengthy document. It's 112 pages. So this or 111 pages. So this, you just saw the cover sheet that is new. The backup to it is 100+ pages of just endless test results of this chemical, that chemical, this limit, etc. And so my understanding is that the amount of data there raised additional questions beyond just the initial, there's been sort of a series of questions, right? The additional background data is what sparked additional questions. So that was the intent of this cover letter, was to further summarize and make it clear what was actually done and were there any issues.
I think, if I may, when we discussed with the environmental engineer, he in essence said you'd need to be a scientist to be able to fully understand the document that was being reviewed and commented on. And as part of the testing protocol, they actually take a clean sample, and to create a further baseline test, they introduce chemicals into the samples that we're taking. So they didn't exist there initially, but as part of their protocols, they introduce chemicals then to see what those resulting factors were. And unfortunately, again, you know, if you're not a soil scientist and you look at this information and all of a sudden you see chemicals that are there, and it raises a red flag. So we felt that it was appropriate to have this letter issued from the environmental scientists stating that clearly, because again, what was being noted, or the concern that was raised, was all based on testing protocols and chemicals that were introduced at the laboratory.
Right, there's positive controls, there's calibration controls, there's lots of controls, and it can be confusing. Okay, Chris Kiefner, did you have your hand up?
I did. I had the impression that the concern that was raised was about the well water. Am I wrong on that?
There were multiple concerns, and to your point, that's as soon as we're done talking about soil, then I was going to turn it over to Alan to just briefly talk about the water testing that's been recently done. So
Good,
you're not wrong. Yeah.
So maybe Alan, do you want to talk about what you found in the water?
Sure. Currently, the thing that was brought up was in 2019, again, in that same phase 2 survey, and it was bromethane and chloromethane. But at that time, we had looked back at all our tests, and we actually go back to 93. And every test we had conducted previously was non-detect for those compounds. But we're on a schedule with the state already for taking these samples, and we just took them in January, and we got to do them quarterly. But in January, the samples came back as non-detect also. And at the time, we were on 2 wells that are now been inactivated also. So the 2 wells we're on currently are new wells that we're on.
And the water testing is from the new wells.
The water testing is from the new wells, correct. Okay. And we are on an accelerated testing frequency with the state just because it is a new system. So they're looking at everything, a lot more rigorously than it would be for a system over time. If we can prove that we come back with non-detects, and we can then ask for a reduction in the sampling frequency. But currently we're on the most aggressive that you can be with the state.
So the state reviews every quarter, whatever you test.
Correct. And they do keep, anyone can look online. Every system in the state of Connecticut is online. You can't see the test results per se, but you can see that people are completing their test as required by the state. So they keep that up.
Okay. Just to add to that, and Alan, the test was done in January of this year, correct?
That is correct.
So that was after the geothermal wells were drilled, and the site work that was part and parcel to this project was complete already by those January tests.
Correct.
Kelly, you had something to add?
Yeah, Alan, the fact that those minerals were they detected at levels that would raise concern, or were they detected at low enough levels to not be of concern?
That is the case. They were detected at low enough not to be a concern. They were below any action level at the time. But we did take action at the time. We added extra filtration on the system to, just in case it ever came back up, we put filters on there to make sure that that would not be a problem to anyone drinking the water.
Okay. Steve?
I believe I remember having this conversation with the consultant back when we were in person. Did we decide that there's there's water filtration on the new school's water system?
There is none so far that I'm aware of on the new school. No. It wouldn't really call for it, again, being that they're not seeing anything in there in the water.
Okay, then I guess, Adam, you can move on to your next item.
That's all I had for these items. I'll come back on with the procurement section.
Okay, great. Any final questions for Adam before we move on to, okay, the architects update? Jeff, you have things to share?
Yeah, so today I went and reviewed the zinc part of the mock-up. Last time I reviewed it, well, a few times before when I reviewed it, there were some concerns about the amount of caulking that was going to be installed and the counter flashing for the zinc to be installed. So upon arriving this morning, I reviewed everything with the installer. He did include the lip in the counter flashing, so everything looks like it's buttoned up fairly tight. So I gave an approval for the zinc next week. They're going to install one section of the B wing, so I'll go out there early and just triple check to make sure that everything is going to be flashed right, counter flashed right, the pattern, the corners, everything. So it looks good. Gave the sign off today for them to proceed. They still owe us a finished mock-up, so I advised today to see if they can get that curtain wall in the rough opening that's there right now in the mock-up so that we can have a full zinc mock-up at least done. And then we have the epay, which is part of that mock-up next to it, which is the wood siding. Now that has a window system that is to receive a caulk adapter in that system. So I want to pay attention to that in terms of the sill flashing and counter flashing as well. So we had a discussion today in the trailer, and that's going to be finished at some point as well. So I think we're moving. It's looking good. I think my understanding is with the installers that we're on the same page as far as how to lay it out. And I think that's it for the architect's report.
Okay,
I did go through the project this morning and took a lot of photographs for my next site observation report. A few items that we'll need to address and be coordinated, but yeah, we're moving and grooving, trying to get it done.
Okay.
So
Questions for Jeff? Ryan?
Not a question for Jeff, but actually, unless it's on the agenda separately and I missed it, but I was just going to say, I didn't know if Adam, if you had anything as far as the neighbor tree buffer outreach update.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I went out today just to in person to meet with the neighbors impacted by the trees at the end of the street there. And so I took some photos. I still have to process those. So what I'll do is I will compile a little folder packet of some images and some of the notes to send with the committee. But the long and short is that you know, the neighbors, particularly the two at the end, 41 and 43, largely were concerned with just the amount of leftover tree debris and branches and the unsightly character. So although the addition of trees, would be good, there still is substantial concern that won't resolve the issue of, looking out of my backyard and either seeing the building or seeing a bunch of, vegetation and like I said, tree debris on the ground. So I'll compile those photos and I'll send it out to the group as part of next steps considerations. Insofar as the trees that were approved were concerned, Newfield is working with their landscaper to try to get those installed, I believe in May, if possible, if they can get the trees. So there might be a good opportunity to see what's installed and then judge and see what might be a good next step to either improve screening or similar.
Okay, Chris.
It's just a simple request on that, Adam. If you could, it might be obvious with the fence, but if you could make it clear where the property line is when you do the pictures, that would be great.
Yep, that should be, I think there's some stakes even still there, so that should be pretty easy.
Thank you.
Okay. Questions for Jeff? Okay, seeing none, then contractor update, Al?
Randy, before we do that, I'm sorry, I do have a question for
go
Jeff.
ahead.
It's about I saw a picture of the pump house, and I feel like the pump house kind of snuck past us. I don't remember reviewing plans for it. I don't remember looking at anything about it, except at the sort of later on, and it wasn't really discussed. But the concern I have is that the height of the roof is a really, if I were 13, it would be a really attractive thing to climb on and readily doable, whether by myself or if I had Adam there as my buddy to lift me up. So I don't know if we have any ideas of if I'm wrong, first of all, or if we have ideas of how to protect the roof and people who might be climbing on it, but I think we should talk about it.
well, there's a fence that encompasses the whole area around the outside of that towards the baseball field side. So it does march along the retaining wall, then comes around the back side at that low section of the roof and wraps itself around. So we do have a fence all the way around.
How tall is the fence?
I have to check the drawings. I believe
Okay.
at least 4 feet.
Okay, it would just be something to watch for. I think it was an unfortunate thing to require a fence because we didn't, anyway. Point made.
Well, when the request came that we needed the pump house for tractors, for all kinds of things in there, there was, we had the baseball fields, a concession stand, we had the forest, and we had our new building, and we had the parking. So we struggled with how to locate that and position that at a point that wasn't, that would work on what was left of the site. So it ended up being that utilities wise, position wise, not seeing so much of the face of it from the baseball field side. So it was like wedging in a small piece of the program that was requested during the process of the ed spec. So, we struggled with that one. We try to make it as best as we could fit in there, so it's not as intrusive to the Parks and Rec and the forest. Wanted to keep it sort of hunkered down and low, so it's not a Butler building type thing. So anyway.
Thank you.
Okay, Al, sorry to interrupt, but you can make your report.
No problem. I'll share the screen. Can everyone see the photos?
Yes.
Okay. Unfortunately, it was too windy today to take drone photos. We almost lost our drone. I'll have extra ones for next time. So what you're seeing here are the bus canopy foundation piers. These are the foundations for the piers. So we started that, pouring those today. Once they're done pouring these piers, we'll backfill this. BB will start on the south side, doing that large retaining wall and the exterior stairs over by the playground. So that's the next big site concrete job. And pretty much the last site concrete job that we have other than sidewalk. This, they've been working the last couple of weeks, putting the exterior insulated panels on the walls and putting this waterproofing membrane on top of that. The next step, which is starting Monday, will be the zinc panels. And we're going to be starting right here at this, these two windows here. We'll get this section done and have Jeff come out and take a look at all the details before we proceed any further. They've started waterproofing the windows here. This was sprayed today. I just don't have a current picture of it. So it's moving in the right direction. Once we get the zinc panels in, we can start installing windows. And the windows are coming May 9th, which is about, I think it's a week from Monday. So once the windows start going in, it opens up a lot more work for us inside. But I'll go through that. This is the gymnasium. We've set the mason up in here, and he started setting his ground face CMU on these exterior walls. And this CMU goes up 12 feet in height.
Al, can you clarify what CMU is? What does that mean?
It's a concrete masonry unit. It's a concrete block, basically. It's ground face. It's finished. Doesn't get painted or anything. This is area A. They're doing framing and mechanical rough ends now. They've got all the hangers laid out and started installing those. It's the other side of A. The classroom side of A. This is a shot of B lower level. This is the corridor. The data guys are in here. They're pulling all their data lines now. It's kind of like the last mechanical electrical rough end before we can close up ceilings. So they've got all their cabling going in now. We have primed and first coat painted most of the walls. We started priming the door frames. Ceiling grid is going in in the classroom and smaller rooms. You can see a little bit over here as well. Corridors won't get any ceiling grid until after the rough-in is complete. Once the windows start going in, it really opens us, and we get some dehumidification down there. It opens up all the millwork to be installed. Next week, we're starting with the wood ceiling. There's spurring on the deck that the ceiling attaches to it. The millwork contractor's coming in next week to install that furring grid, starting in the lower level. I mean, the upper level. Sorry. Windows are coming May 9th. Spoke about that. That's a good start. Zinc siding starts. They're going to be setting up tomorrow, but it officially starts on Monday. Gym roofing is scheduled to begin on Monday of next week. The high roof framing that ties in all three areas is being worked on now. The walls are being framed and sheathed. The roofer, once he's done with the gym roof, he'll hop over to B, finish the clear story walls, and then over to A, finish the clear story walls there. So we're kind of looking 2.5 weeks to be dried in the main center area of the building, and that's going to open up a lot more work for us. I have one more picture, but it came out really fuzzy. So that's about all I have to say.
Okay, does the committee have questions for Al? And if I can't see you, just speak up. Tony?
Yeah.
How is the schedule holding up?
The schedule is pretty much on track. We've gotten some more dates. We got some more dates on equipment today, and they're not bad. I mean, they're not what we wanted to hear, but they're not pushing the schedule anymore.
So the lighting fixtures,
The lighting fixtures, we have them 80% of them. We have delivery dates for them, and there's the 20% which we don't have delivery dates for. We've been told they're mostly exterior fixtures, but we have a lighting review meeting tomorrow just to figure out what's coming and what's not coming, and what we still need dates for.
Al, can you define on track? Just so everybody's clear of what on track actually means.
We're on track with our current schedule. But there's a new schedule out there that shows the delays from the DOAS. That's the schedule we're on track with.
so the same, basically the same as what we talked about last meeting.
Correct.
So that's the schedule I shared with the committee as part of their packet was the one that had your yellow highlight boxes. So that has the building completion date of, I believe it's October 18th. Is that right? That's what we're tracking against?
Yeah, the schedule right here. It has this building substantial completion on 10/18 and substantial completion of the site on November 2nd. There's like a 2-week difference.
But just for and then Al, correct me if I'm misstating anything, but so this is the 10/18 date would be the date the building is done if not all of the site elements are needed to be complete to get a certificate of occupancy, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And that's the part you're talking with DOT less so, but more now with the Planning and Zoning Commission in the town. You have to outreach to them to coordinate that effort, right?
Correct. Yeah, the substantial completion for the building will include the temporary bus loop and some of the parking in that main parking lot, but it won't have the entire parking lot. And then the substantial completion for the site, that's 100% of the site complete, except for punch list and, smaller items that we'll have until December 1st to complete.
Tony and then Chris Kiefer.
Why do you need DOT? I mean, DOT is going to be working on the junction with 89 and 195, but why else?
We just received our DOT permit for all the improvements in the DOT right of way, which is like the first 25 feet off of 89. So all the curb cuts, all the entrances that we have to cut in are all part of that DOT work. All the landscaping in that area, trees, shrubs, drainage lines, all that work is under the DOT permit.
And there was an issue of some land that DOT owns, and we had to get permission to use it. Has that all been clarified?
Yes, I believe that was taken care of pre-construction.
Okay.
It was I believe there was a lease there.
So Tony, to expound on that a bit, so the occupancy of the building itself relies on a number of things outside the building, mainly access, parking, etc. You can imagine you don't want a new building that's off in the middle of a field with no access from the road, and fire and emergency services can't get there. So that's how DOT plays a part in their certificate of occupancy. Is a building official can't issue a certificate of occupancy if there's no way to properly get there. So that was why that were part of it. And then subsequently, there's a conversation that needs to be had with the Planning and Zoning Commission with regard to not having a fully complete parking lot. So that's the other element that Al is working with the town on, because there needs to be authorization for issuing a certificate of occupancy and the certificate of zoning compliance in advance of not everything being complete in terms of the parking lot, etc. So that's why the site ties into the building for being able to occupy the building.
Okay, I have two more questions. One of them is, when is the move-in date? And also, what does this delay do to questions about storage of furniture and other kinds of equipment?
Well, I'll answer the second one first. With regard to furniture, both new and existing, so the existing furniture will have to obviously move to Goodwin and Vinton to support those two schools while they're operating with the various student populations, desks, etc. With regard to new furniture, based on schedule updates, we need to circle back TSKP and the furniture vendors to determine when the new furniture would be delivered. So it might very well still be delivered far earlier than this October completion date if the rooms are ready. We just want to make sure the furniture doesn't arrive and has nowhere to go or there's nowhere to build it.
So how does that look right now?
Right now, it's close. I have not yet delved into the schedule. I don't think TSKP has yet either. It's really like an area and section by section, and what types of furniture are being delivered and what types need to be assembled in the gym, etc.
Okay. So the next question was, what's the estimated opening date? Do we have one?
Not yet. I don't think we have a set date on this is when the new building is opening and move in.
Okay, well, as soon as we get one, we need to invite the governor, so.
Okay, Chris?
Yeah, Al, I read a bunch of stuff, and maybe Scott and Adam, you can answer this too, or whoever knows more, about unsuitable soils in the bus loop. And I mentioned you, Al, because you talked about doing the bus loop, but it wasn't clear to me if they were just unsuitable. I mean, if they were unsuitable or just unexpected because it was brick and concrete and that kind of thing. Can you, and no voids, I guess was the term. I can't remember what the term was. No nesting or something. Could you talk to us about that?
Sure. We ran into some of this material last year when we were doing some work by our trailer. And there is a layer of unsuitable material, or we're calling unsuitable. It's not really like structural fill or anything. But the geotechnical engineer and the site engineer came out to take a look. And we're still waiting on a report, but they indicated they didn't think it was an issue.
Which means we don't have to pay BB to take it away, pay BB to bring in new stuff. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, if the experts say it's no problem, then we just leave it in place.
Okay. Another question was, Jeff has mentioned, at least on a tour, that that you talked about painting. And so I was wondering about the door frames, because there's something on the door frames where they're supposed to get welded together because they were taken apart or were apart or something like that. Is the welding happening? Is it scheduled? What's going on with that?
Yeah, the welding is required because the frames came in two pieces instead of one piece, where we had the door frames shipped separately from the window frame. So they do have to weld those areas. I emailed Builders Hardware again today, telling him that we needed to get the welding of these frames done ASAP, and we started painting frames already, so he's going to be liable for any back charges from the subcontractors to do any touch up.
And one last question I had for you, Al. What do you feel like is going particularly well? Where are the happy places for you on this right now?
I'm going to be happy when I see windows going in on the 9th of May, because it will start closing in the building. And we can get some temperature and humidity control inside, so we can open up a lot of other work. We got a warehouse full of cabinets that we're expecting, to start probably the first week in June. So we have about 4, maybe 4.5 weeks to get to a situation where we can start putting in millwork, and then things will really start going. Because once the millwork goes in, then you got your flooring and your ceilings, and it just starts to look more finished.
Well, one thing that's a nice surprise is that there was an issue with matching the color of the lockers that were going in the classrooms for the upper grades, and I was really concerned with that, not matching the millwork or the wood for all the upper cabinets in all the classrooms. So Al took it upon himself to just have the millwork guy do the lockers, just like the cubbies, because they're very similar in design. They just don't have the door, or they have the doors. So I'm getting excited to get the windows in as well, so that we can start to see that millwork, all that nice, beautiful maple coming into the classrooms, all the upper cabinets, everything lining up with the cubbies and the lockers below. It's going to really complement the glue lam beams and the vaulted spaces, and it's going to look nice. So I'm with Al. I want to get these windows, but from my point of view, I just want to make sure all that flashing is tight. The caulking, we got 3 layers of caulking in there, and it's just buttoned up the way it needs to be buttoned up. So yeah, we'll be out there quite a bit checking all that stuff.
Chris McNamara?
Hey, Al, where are we at with that idea you had where the DOAS units could be shipped empty and installed in site?
Yeah, we had a subcontractor meeting today, and we talked in length about that with Eric. He stated to us that his supplier has a meeting with the manufacturer and their higher ups at the manufacturer, so we should have some information tomorrow. But he did not have any new information for us today. That was the only new information we got, that they are meeting internally there, and we should have an answer tomorrow or Monday.
Okay, and any update about when the generators transfer switch is gonna happen?
That yes, we got word that that's going to be on site July 29th.
Oh, I thought it was July 22nd.
29th.
Okay,
I think it's shipping the 22nd and being here in the 29th.
okay. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions for Al? Okay, all right. Thank you, Al, for that update.
Thanks, everyone.
Adam, that brings us then to procurement review.
Yeah, so no PCOs tonight. The only item, and really there's just a draft motion for it, is to appropriate some of the funds we have budgeted to WB Meyer. They're the mover that we used for the portables. And it's basically just based on their state contract and the rates they're in. So this is similar to how we did the testing lab, where there's a pot of funds and the state contract, it gets pulled from there as they conduct the services. So same thing with the movers. And so the amount we have, 50,000 is what there's currently in the motion for tonight.
Okay. Are there questions on this?
We have additional funds above and beyond that allocated within the overall project budget, but we're just looking to free up 50,000 of that, anticipating, starting of the move process. And they've already been dropping off boxes and have been integrally involved in the planning of the pending moves.
Okay, is there someone that would like to make a motion then to appropriate those funds? Mary, how about you? You want to read the entire motion?
I will. I would like to make a motion to appropriate $50,000 of budgeted funds to WB Meyer for moving supplies and move services on a time and material basis under State of Connecticut Department of Administrative Services Contract 14PSX0161.
Okay, thank you. Is there?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Chris. Any further questions? Okay, then all in favor for approving this motion, please give me a sign. Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, that's unanimous then. Okay, then that brings us to the approval of project invoices.
Yes. So I'll just pull it up here so we can all look at it together. So for tonight, slightly larger packet. Some of the elements include some of the IT equipment from two of our vendors, Atlantic and GovConnection. They've been dropping off materials at the town. So Jamie and Yvette with the town have been receiving those materials and vetting them. So two invoices each from them, as well as our commissioning agent, Colliers, Taisu, the architect, WB Meyer for some of the boxes, Weston and Sampson, who's our stormwater monitoring agent, Willimantic for town contract for the dumpster, so help with the purging process from all the schools. And then the Nunez companies, there are two pay applications. That's for the intersection work, which is again coming shortly to a close. So we have their first two pay apps on the docket for a total of just about 230,000. And then Newfield's pay up 11 for 2.185 million.
Okay, any questions? Chris?
What is the status and the satisfaction level with the mock-up at this point? Can you mentioned it, Jeff, but I don't. It's not clear to me where it stands and if it's really.
Well, I brought that up. It's interesting you mentioned the hollow metal frames and the screws, because that came up today at today's OAC meeting this morning. But that also came up in terms of, if we don't have a finished mock-up, then it should be a credit back to the client. But I was under the impression that it's going to be finished. So the discussion is that the zinc was approved. We got all the counter flashing, everything in place. They're going to, because the curtain wall window that goes into that part of the mock-up is slightly oversized, and they've taken it all apart. They've even taken the glass apart. It's all behind the mock-up there. There's no reason why they can't just trim that down to make it work with our mock-up and get the glazing in there, get the caulking in there, so we can get a final approval on that section of the mock-up. Then we'll do the same thing with the e-pay once they're ready. So that's my understanding of where they're going to go with it, so that it's not that we just abandon the mock-up. And then, we're owed a mock-up, and it has to be, it's supposedly a tool to resolve any issues in terms of installing or flashing or caulking. So my my impression is that it's still a tool and it's not complete yet. But there was a schedule issue with getting the zinc up, so I allowed them, because the zinc has to go up first anyway before the glazing. As long as that counter flashing, the sealant flashing, all those things are developed and put in the mock-up correctly, then they have a template for what they can do on the actual building. So I was okay with that. And then next week I'll go and check out the actual install, and then we'll follow up the mock-up then with the curtain wall section and those sunshade devices in that part of the mock-up, and then we'll move into the e-pay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions? If not, then is there a motion to approve the monthly invoice packet? Chris McNabo, we should probably read this entire one into the record.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the monthly invoice dated April 28th, 2022. And you want all the invoice numbers?
Just, there's a motion that kind of helps get past all that.
And I can't get to that page right now.
Okay,
My
I'd
screen
be
is-
happy to read
Mary?
it if you'd like.
Thank you.
hey,
So
Mary,
this
you
is
want to read it, or Chris?
Mary's got it. Go ahead.
Okay, so I would like to make a motion to approve monthly invoice packet for March 2020 dated today, April 28th, including invoices from Atlantic, CES, Colliers Project Leaders, Gov Connection, TSKP Studios, WB Meyer, Weston and Sampson, and Willimantic for the dumpster in the amount of $117,783.83, along with Nunez Company's application for payment number 1 in the amount of $34.10. Nunez Company's application for payment number 2 in the amount of $166,035.05. And Newfield's application for payment number 11 in the amount of $2,185,805.94 for a total approval of $2,542,658.92.
Okay. Chris McNamara, do you want to second that?
Second.
Okay. Any further questions? Then Rich, do you have a question?
It might be just my audio here, but I thought Mary said the date was 2020 on the invoice.
Dated April 28, 2022 is what it should be.
Yeah, so just if that, I don't know if that happened or not, but just to point that out.
Okay.
We don't want to go back in time to that date, so.
No. Okay, then all in favor of approving the motion, please give me a sign. Any opposed or abstentions? Okay. That brings us to the opportunity for public input. Is there anybody who would like to address the committee? Seeing none, we will then move on to adjournment. I would accept the motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn. Can I talk with Scott and Adam after this for a second?
Sure. Tosh, I can leave that up for you. So we have a motion to adjourn from Chris Kiefner in a second. I think I saw Madison. I see Madison's hand. Okay. All in favor? Can indicate, and we'll see you next time.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Okay. Bye. Let me see, Adam. I'll make you the host.
Okay.
That way I can log off.
Okay.
Thanks, Tasha.
And you don't need me, right, Chris? I can go.
Thanks, Randy. No, we're good.
Okay. So Adam, I'm gonna make you the host.
Do you
When
stop
have it, let me
recording?
know. Oh,
Is the recording still on, or is that?
I don't know. Do we need a record of this conversation, Chris?
No,
oh,
not for my sake.
hold on 1 minute, guys. 'cause
You might
I
want
don't-
one, but I don't need it.
Oh, okay.
Can I remake you the host, Tasha? So that way I don't want to mess up the recording.
Yes, make me the host, yes. Or can you just, oh,